LOTUS, and perhaps not one fitting of such a powerful car. Ledenon will be a twisty, hilly affair as we get ready to watch round 8 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. I am Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director Daniel Costello, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Ledenon is a unique track in many ways, including the fact that it's still owned by the same family as when it was built. Let's take a closer look at it with our track guide. Welcome to Circuit de Ledenon. Located in the south of France, close to the Mediterranean, this is a relatively small circuit that packs a lot of action. The elevation changes are dramatic, and with 15 corners over a mere 2 miles, or about 3 kilometers, you're never not busy behind the wheel. GT cars, touring cars, and lower-level open-wheelers are the main staple of this place, with it being just a bit too short and twisty for anything bigger. The opening of the lap gives a false impression of what you're about to tackle. A long front straight blends into a 3-apex sweeping left-hander called triple gauche. But from there on, you're fighting your way around a myriad of hairpins that guide you up and down a natural valley that cuts through the circuit. Perhaps the most frightening is Cuvette, in which you pick up speed plunging down a steep hill and slaloming between a series of kinks. It all culminates in the left-hander forcing you to stomp the brakes while trying to line it up correctly. Then, on the way out, if you get a poor exit, the monstrous climb up to the finish line punishes you severely. Having been built, owned, and run by the same family since it was created in the early 70s, there's nothing quite like it elsewhere in the country, and maybe even the world. No wonder it continues to draw French fans in and year out. Well, the good news is this is going to be a real challenge for the drivers, so it should give us some interesting racing. The bad news is, Joey, neither of us are good at French.
No, you're not going to get those pronunciations out of old Big Mac over here, but 15 turns, 1.95 miles in length is this Ledenon circuit, and it's going to be a little bit of a tricky one with tons of elevation change. Now, the track map, it looks relatively normal, kind of like an F1 circuit. However, 1.95 miles in length, it is a short one, so if we're going to draw any similarities, let's kind of think of Rudskogen back earlier this season where the drivers are really struggling to put the power down the entire time. Turns 1, 2, and 3, that fast left-hander that always tightens up. A couple big passing opportunities. Turn 5, the hairpin to the right. Also turn 11 over there, that final last hairpin on the top of the screen there. But I'm just interested to see how the drivers attack this relatively unknown track here in iRacing and how quickly those rear tires are going to spin up and maybe even end some races.
Yeah, at least it's got some runoff in a number of places to help them out, but you'll see a lot of off tracks here today, no doubt, as we take a look at the championship standings on this one. Valenteus has been around a lot this season. In the past, he hasn't been competing for the championship because he has a lack of attendance. This time, not the case, and Seb Tixier is keeping him honest, but many weeks, Adrius is very tough to beat. Jorge Nieva also struggling to keep pace with him, but his consistency definitely keeping him well in the hunt. Togo Hisada having a bit of an up and down season, to be honest. So he's a full 50 points behind, with Xavier Sanchez actually doing quite well, only 5 more behind him. Then you get a bit of a jump down to the rest of the field in a tight fight for 6th here in the top 10. But that's just the F1 standings. Let's take a look at the F2 drivers.
Michael Grissinger is a narrow 3 points ahead of Kurt Clapper, so that one is something to watch. Mats Linden currently in 3rd place, being chased by Jem Matson, but I think this is where the next battle comes in. We got 3 drivers, Roberto Pengrazi, Jan Steffen, and Jonathan Jordan. They're only 3 points separating each of those drivers for what is 5th place in that championship. And then another good battle that kind of falls off of the screen here, 9th and 10th. It's David Tomoski and Jonathan Jordan, David Tomoski, Sandeep Banerjee, and Tobias Harnvey, all only separated by a couple points apiece as well. So F2, a ton of drivers all stacked on top of each other.
As for the Nations Cup, it's got got a couple of them stacked on top of each other a little bit farther down, but up at the top, it's Spain leading with Singapore giving chase. Lithuania is where Valenteus claims, and he's got his country all the way down in 6th. Often it does help to have a number of drivers from your country to contribute points. That's why we're seeing Spain so far up, and Japan, of course, trying to play catch up, staying ahead of the United States. So the UK, they're in 5th. So interesting little battle happening in the Cup of Nations. But real quickly, before we get to the grid here soon, Joey, why don't we run through the race details?
Round 8 of 12 on the downhill swing of this season. 26 laps, it is what is on the docket today for the race. Open setup as always, so you have the freedom to tweak and tune on that machine. Make sure it's driving just how you want it to. No spare cars, so if you pick up any damage, run into your buddies out there, or find yourself a wall, well, you're going to have to live with it. A drive-through penalty at 17x, a disqualification at 25x, and as we were hearing you say earlier, Joe, there is plenty of runoff, but I say it every week. The name of the game here is not putting your box inside of a competitor's box. Just don't pick up any of that damage with these open wheel cars.
Exactly. Now, here's what's interesting about this one. Andres Valenteus missed pole initially by 0.007 of a second. Togo Hisada has out-qualified him, and track position, as we can see, is probably going to be huge here. But then Seb Tixier just went faster. Now, Jorge Nieva is on his second lap. He just came across the line here, and he jumps up to 4th. So that's about as we expected. The top 4 in the championship basically all clumped together on the track, with a driver that we sometimes see here, Joey. Iztok Vreco is back as well.
Yeah, the Vreco's been showing up a little bit more. The other car that I was noticing was Xavier Sanchez in the number 4 as Kevin Verbruggen climbs some of the elevation here at this Ledenon circuit, go up the front straightaway, complete his lap, see what he's able to throw down. Looks like it's going to be off the pace here. As I was watching Sanchez, a 121.1, so that is going to bump him up into 8th.
Checking to see if anybody else can complete laps here, and Miguel Navarro in the 36 might have enough time to finish his second lap. I think he's the only other driver that has one remaining. Here he is right now. First lap, unfortunately, got deleted, and it does look like he is trundling around a bit, but there's a lot of corners here, and this car doesn't look as fast through the turns as, oh, you can see how tough it is trying to get the power down.
This is a really good example of just kind of the car wiggling and wandering all over the place, and we're used to seeing modern cars on TV, or the GT3s even here on iRacing, but these Lotus 49s, they definitely drive quite a bit different, and I think Miguel just kind of coming to grips with this car and this track combination.
Also got deleted, and that is it. Everybody has now set a time. Nobody has any laps remaining in this qualifying. Novikov probably getting whatever practice he can in, especially into triple gauche. I'll be honest, Joey, I hate opening corners like this that just keep going and tightening up.
The consistently tightening corners where you have to slow down through them, it's kind of a vehicle dynamics worst nightmare, because you got to put all the weight on that front corner. You got to not overload it, otherwise it starts to understeer. If you take too much speed into it and start playing with your right foot on the throttle pedal, it'll start to slide out with the tail. So yeah, I think that decreasing radius corners, they're never anybody's friend.
All right, well, there it is. Qualifying is finished, and our grid is now set. And it looks like Seb Tixier is going to be starting up at the top. He hails from Singapore, but I believe he's originally French-born. Let's see what he can do, as Togo Hisada will start next to him. Andres Valenteus starting in 3rd. Got some work to do. And Nieva will be P4 as Vreco starts in 5th. John Olsen in 6th today, with the next row scene for Bruggen there on the inside, Sanchez to the outside. After that, it's Gary Ho, another Singapore driver, starting 9th.
Lopez Salgado in 13th, Bob Woodhouse in 14th. Roberto Pengrazi and Michael Grissinger share row number 8. On 17th, we got Jonathan Jourdain with Matthew Maudsley, and then Cam Porter and Jim Matson in 20th.
Steven will start 21st, Bjorn Ackerman in 22nd. After that, it's Pol Ferrer, P23. Darren Burgess starts 24th with the quarter-century mark going to Alejandro Sanchez. Mario Micheletti starts in 26th, followed by Matthew Nelson, 27th. Mats Linden in P28. Robert Plumley will begin from 29th, and then 30th goes to Tim Porter.
31st is Gleb Novikov. And we have Tobias Arnby in 32nd, David French lined up in 33rd with Jake Evans along next to him in 34th, Stefan Couvreur in 35th. Laust Olsen did not put on a qualifying time, starts way in the back in 36th, David Tomaski 37th, and Miguel Navarro, the final of the 38 cars.
Good news is it's not a terribly hot track at about 90 Fahrenheit. It's a little windy at 12 miles an hour. Some of the crests, they could find themselves in trouble on that one, but we wait for the last of them to grid up to get us going here, which should be any moment now. What will this first race at Ledenon be like for the Grand Prix Legends Series? As it looks like that is the ticker done, and it's time to go racing. The engines now start to rev as the lights come up. 26 laps, and the green flag is out. Seb Tixier does not get the best of starts. He immediately tries to cover off Togo Hisada and around the outside. Oh, contact as Tixier is off. And Valenteus has to take evasive action to try and avoid, as Nieva's got a chance to try and take the lead away.
He's going to try to slide in front of Togo Hisada, but Togo puts the power down. He's on the right side of the racetrack, headed towards turn number 5. He's going to be able to defend. That's going to open the door for the number 1 car, Valenteus. He's side by side with Nieva now, but the track sweeps back to the left. I believe the number 2 will be able to defend second place.
Wow, what a start to this one, and it looks like Valenteus is not done with his troubles. That's John Olsen trying to challenge him as they plunge down the hill into Cabion and the Cavala as they break for this right-hander. Then once again, back uphill. You can see just how much it rises and falls in and out of this valley.
Lots of elevation here as you're looking back. John Olsen trying to make the most of this start. He's already up 2 positions. A shame for Seb Tixier on turn 1 there on the opening lap, but he is back in the thick of it.
Yeah, at least he's still in this race, but I think the win's pretty much out of his hands at this stage. But 3 wide into turn 1 just did not go, as now they come to complete lap 1. It's Hisada, Nieva, Valenteus, your top 3. Greco's still there in 5th as well behind John Olsen, as Verbruggen took a big look on Sanchez.
Well, I don't think that was a look, Joe. We were talking before the show even started that crest on the front straightaway, it might throw some of these drivers for a loop with wheel spin and whatnot. And I counted multiple cars on the first lap there that had definitely caught them out by surprise. So we're going to have to watch turn 14. You know, you climb up out of the hill, but you got to crest the hill at some point.
Let's see what happened on this start. Like I said, Seth looked like he struggled a bit. Then he had Hisada, then suddenly late into the corner to his outside. Also there come Valenteus, who narrowly missed out. But unfortunately, open wheel cars do not like to bang doors or non-existent doors, and that sent him off into the kitty litter.
And, you know, I'll armchair quarterback this a little bit, and there is a huge amount of netcode in that replay, but I think that even without the netcode, Togo Hisada's trajectory would have probably impacted Seb Tixier. Definitely a bummer to see, but we still got a race between Togo, Jorge, and Valenteus out front, as well as Bob Woodhouse trying to make his way up through the field. As I see that car off the track, I believe that was Xavier Sanchez in the number 4.
It was indeed. Oh, and he's coming up to another wreck in front of him. That is Gary Ho off to the side there, coming down through La Cuvette. And he's going to be able to at least back it up and get it out of the way. But that is a difficult spot because the braking into that corner is super tricky.
I'm sorry, Joe, did you say La Corvette? I'm pretty sure it's pronounced Corvette out there.
I mean, that would be a cool name for a corner, but no, Cuvette or Cuvette, I'm not sure. Again, French not my forte as we watch Delgado, who's going to try and cut underneath here in the number 13. Good run through DuPont.
Yeah, and it's going to be a huge stack up as they're hard on the brakes again. Just this circuit throws corner after corner at these drivers. You want to put down your right foot and accelerate out of a lot of these, but by the time you do, pretty much the next turn is on top of you. Take a look at this replay of what exactly happened to Seb Tixier. Watch him here in the number 8. Remember, he's trying to work his way through the field and a little bit too happy with that right foot.
That red mist is down. I think he's trying to overdrive the car a bit, trying to make up for this, and it is not helping his situation. Sanchez also in a similar plight right here as he's trying to catch back up to what he lost out of the hairpin last time, La Sauve. And he's already up to what looks like 14th spot as they come through the final corner. Pangrazi is the car up in front of him. Look at how steep it is up that hill. Probably getting the throttle down early going to be so important there.
And in that turn 15 kink, kind of as you crest the hill, it seems like now that everybody's got the tire temperatures and pressures where they want them, it's not so much of an issue. Either that or the driver, the monkey behind the wheel, finally realized, hey, I got to lift off the throttle or take this thing a little bit more straight.
Sanchez down to the inside, and he's going to be given some space right at the last moment. Pangrazi wanted to turn to the apex. He's going to try and get him right back now into Le Carrias, and as they break for this left-hander, many hairpins around here. Despite having the inside, Pangrazi cannot keep him behind.
I mentioned during the track map, I think it's going to be the right foot and trying to put down the power, but so far, I've seen a lot of these spins on the beginning half of the corner as we're watching Jim Matson back here in 19th. And what happens is these drivers get in a little bit too deep. They squeeze that pedal pressure a little bit too hard, and it just tends to either lock up into a slide.
I'm also seeing a lot of drivers abusing the white lines around here. That marks the edge of the track. And it's 17 incidents, Joey. You've got a drive-through penalty. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a few visitors down pit lane before this is over.
And you say that. I remember back at Rudskogen where I believe it was Seb Tixier. He didn't go over the incident limit, but I believe he got 1 or 2 slowdowns from running over some white lines that kind of took him out of the fight for the lead. And so, yeah, that's another really interesting topic, that even if you don't get that 17X for the black flag, but you might even pick up a slowdown somewhere from running off too far.
That's true. And Valenteus right now still sitting in 3rd place, has Nieva in front of him. But like we said, track position so important here, as I think they might be allowed to go wide there, but a lot of drivers certainly are pushing it. And as they come back up the hill, he has got a face full of that gearbox with no place to go around yet.
I believe that corner that what we were talking about was that turn 9 complex. Now this is kind of the mini S section of 12 and 13. Feed it down into the bottom of the hill. This left-hander right here, this is turn number 14. Put your foot down, try to climb it up out of this hole. Turn 15 is a slight little kink here as you crest the straightaway and across the start-finish line and all the way on to the extra runoff over there.
Look how much they're bouncing around as well. I mean, these cars do have a very compliant suspension, as Valenteus is going to pick him off there, as it looks like Nieva went a bit wide this time in the triple gauche.
Yeah, just part of the racetrack that he didn't want to go on, but he was just so far outside. He was forced in there with the marbles and whatnot. So Nieva back to 3rd as we're watching Glenn Becker a little bit further back. He's got Xavier Sanchez directly in front of him. And correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, wasn't Xavier just a few more spots ahead? He might have had another issue somewhere.
You know what? I'm checking his lap times here. I don't see. Well, last time I was about 22. He could have been in a bit of a battle on that one. But yeah, you're right. I feel like he had passed at least a couple more cars. He's still in 12th, so he didn't lose too much as we check in with Grissinger now a little bit farther behind them. A whole train in this one. This is a battle for 14th being led by Jourdain.
And pay attention to that yellow car with the blue helmet, the blue stripe. So that is Laust Olsen, one of the regulars here in this series. But Laust didn't put in that qualifying time, so he's already up 18 spots. Wow.
Yeah, he said he missed both laps. Unfortunately went off track, which deletes the lap. And so Gatto side by side into the final corner. This is brave stuff. Now it's down to that right foot like Joey was talking about. And just behind them, is that Sanchez getting in it? Yes, it is.
Yeah, he slipped up a little bit with the power, so it killed his momentum. He was able to get by one car and almost runs into the back They're right in front of him, so you got to be careful if you're the driver of the number 4 not to outbrake yourself and collect Darren Burgess. That's the number 19 directly in front of him, but those two cars definitely on a charge.
These things are like taking a GT3 car around a go-kart track here. It is just so tiny and twisty with massive power underneath these things. Watching Glenn Becker now sitting in 12th position behind Sanchez. If maybe he could use Sanchez as the plow, he can get by Burgess, just kind of picking him off.
And Burgess got to be careful. There goes the lap car off to driver's left and into turn number 9. Use all of that. You know, I'm going to call it kind of the half pipe over there. They're using all of that extra banking to help turn him into that corner.
I like that. Yeah, just a little bit of a quarter pipe to help them out. Is down to the inside. Sanchez on Burgess, but Burgess rebuffs him once again. He gives it another look. He's going to have the inside down into the final corner. And as he breaks deep, can he get it turned in is the question. Burgess gives him space, and job is done for Xavier.
I really like what I'm seeing from the outside lane, because look at Burgess through the final corner. He still has a head of steam. Now, I think he realized that Sanchez is just a little bit faster, so he's not going to argue with him into turn number 1. But so far, that outside lane in turn 14, it does provide some immense traction and kind of a drag race between the two lines out of that final turn.
Definitely fascinating. As Paul Ferrer, I think, just lost a couple positions in this battle. Seb Tixier might explain that, as he's just ahead of him. He's trying to work on Matson now. Matson going to give him space down the inside of DuPont. And as they accelerate out of there once again, oh, and a big tip between Ferrer, unfortunately getting hit in the side by Matson and popped into the air.
Now I'm going to draw back on how old I am. You remember those moon bounce shoes from the 90s where you'd strap them onto your feet and supposedly you could just go bouncing like a trampoline? That's kind of what Paul Ferrer reminded me of right there. Not the type of impact we typically see out of motorsports.
No, definitely not. And it certainly caught our director by surprise as he was in our ears making some noises there from that one. But certainly an interesting moment, and unfortunately for Pole, that sends him down to 26th.
We catch up for the battle up front. This is our top 3, and I think the only thing that's really changed is Valenteus is now putting the pressure on Togo Hisada ever since he got clear of Nieva. So, yes, I think that it's Hisada still to lose. Nieva is kind of patiently waiting, but it's going to be between these two, and if these two come into contact like we saw earlier, it could be Jorge picking up the scraps.
He tries his best to see if he can get ahead of Togo Hisada. Togo needs to strike back in this championship with it being so late in the season. In fact, he almost needs to be able to beat him in all the remaining races, I think, if he hopes to try and catch up in the championship. The drop rounds helping out Audrius so much, despite him having a couple zeros to his name, as Glenn Becker is currently sandwiched between Burgess and Salgado still. And up ahead of them, that is Xavier Sanchez. Way too wide, though, for Burgess. Sounds like we got a replay. Is this going to be those moon boots again?
I'm going to see if this is Paul Ferrer coming out of the corner, trying to put the power down. It indeed is. And check this out. Some serious airtime right there, and even lands it the proper way. I think he does a 360, but then ultimately gets going again.
Bonus points for style. Unfortunately, doesn't mean anything in terms of track position for him.
Might need a chiropractor.
Yeah. Seb Tixier, in the meantime, gets another one. Pangrazi overtaken. Honestly, I think if it was real life, because these chassis don't flex, Lotus is notoriously being light. I think that thing would have been folded in half.
I can picture that, just like how you would have an empty soda can and all of a sudden it just kind of crinkles up and it's not the same shape anymore. And I think Seb Tixier is one of the drivers that is happy that it doesn't do that quite in iRacing like it used to in real life. And actually, up front, I just noticed this. Yeah, Valenteus was side by side with Hisada there. Actually even snagged it away for just a moment, but Hisada was able to defend.
Yeah, Hisada went wide, and Andreas thought he had an opportunity. He's going to be close here. Let's see what he's got down the main straight. I don't think there's quite enough for a slipstream to mean much. Or does it, as he's down to the inside. Once again, Togo going to try and shut the door, and Andreas doesn't get it once again. But look behind them. Jorge Nieva remains an ever-present threat. This is still a three-car fight.
I thought that Togo was pretty respectful there in turn number 1, and looking at the track map, one is at least able to leave the door open because it continues to tighten the radius. You get to carry the momentum around, so I think that Valenteus is going to have to be all the way up alongside Togo if he wants to make a move in turn 1 specifically, but as we've seen already from other areas and other racers, there are some opportunities at other corners to kind of sling it up in there.
This is a fascinating battle. Olsen about 5 seconds back, so he's not really a problem for them at this stage. Getting close to the halfway point of this race, so poor Hisada has a lot of defending to do if this stays as is once again around La Servier. A very close moment for Valenteus, who looked strong through that portion, but he also looked awful close up the hill. What did he learn last time, Joey?
We're going to find out, and actually Valenteus doesn't quite get the run that he needs to, so he's just going to kind of stay about 5 car lengths behind Togo Hisada. I mean, unless some kind of monster lunge happens, yeah, nothing's going to happen there, and actually Togo just threw it into turn number 1, but I was going to make the comment that Togo is still driving this like a typical road race circuit where he's kind of doing a little bit more of a late apex and focusing on the exits, and that's totally normal. However, with how short this racetrack is, those straightaways, they're not very long. Andreas Valenteus taking a little bit more of the autocross approach where the shortest distance is going to be the fastest lap time, and I think ultimately that is the quicker of the two options.
Well, so far it's kept him all over the back of the Japanese driver, so I'm kind of with you on that one as they come up to lap traffic, and this could definitely play a part. Andreas once again thought there was a chance, but he gets the door slammed in his face as they go by Miguel, and he has allowed them through. Nieva's still there, another car off track to the side, David Tomaski, and then more lap traffic. Now they are in the thick of it as they catch the back of the field.
We're not even halfway into this race, so we're just going to be sitting in it, and this is going to majorly choke him up. Hisada barely gets clear of that lap car. I mean, that was millimeters to spare between those two wheels. Thankfully, Togo chose the right direction.
It is a real dance here. Novikov thankfully avoiding disaster, getting out of the way just at the right time. Maybe covering a bit more of the inside this time as Hisada learning from watching those mirrors, and Valenteus just getting his nose in time after time. They're close coming down to DuPont, but I don't think it's going to happen here.
It's just a little bit more of this autocross section. You do have a little bit of a short sprint as we check in on Kevin Verbruggen, currently chasing Istok Greco, as well as John Olsen here. So these cars, they are now coming up into that lap traffic that we saw the front three hitting, and it's just going to be this kind of dynamic look of having to go around not only the track, but the lapped traffic.
I think at this point I tend to call it the conveyor belt. It's just an onslaught of cars, and you're just going to have to deal with it as it happens, as Greco still with Verbruggen right behind him. And this is a bit of a crest here that then finds itself tightening and tightening into the hairpin of La Servier. And then back down the hill it goes through the S's, as Joey mentioned, as they weave back and forth, trying to straighten it out as much as they can. Looks like Olsen will be able to pull away through that portion and keep himself safe.
You know, and visually, the last third of this track, that sector, I really enjoy. I think the front half of it could use a little bit more straightaway, but this section right here, as you come downhill through the S's, charge the car into this turn 14 where you're hard on the brakes, having to put all the weight on the front right and then stand on the gas with all of that extra grip as Tixier wags the tail. I think that section definitely has some pretty cool character to it.
It really does, and Seb Tixier, unfortunately, not appreciated it right now, it seems, as he's still in 12th place. He's made up a lot of spots, but it has been an absolute slog for him to try and make up for what was literally turn one, lap one.
It's definitely a shame as he's going to look to the inside of Darren Burgess in that orange number 19. I think he'll be able to make the move here probably in the next lap or so. But credit to that 19. He has had a terrific race. He's kind of been holding up a few cars, but he has moved up 13 positions from where he started. So definitely doing a great job.
Burgess put both laps in, so I don't know if maybe he was just a little off pace or if he's still kind of figuring this track out. But whatever the case, he's definitely racing much better than he qualified. Back to Valenteus. Ooh, did he have a hiccup? Because he was much closer less than half a lap ago.
I make this comment quite often about Togo Hisada and his driving style. He is so good in these Lotus 49s, but I feel like he goes through different phases of the race. Sometimes he is just smoking hot that nobody can touch him. Sometimes he's trying to figure out exactly how to take these turns, and I think we're in that phase that he's figured something out and he's just putting the foot down.
You know, I went back and checked, and up the hill, Audrius was just a little bit slow. I think he had a slowdown penalty like you were talking about earlier in the broadcast. So pushed the limits a little too far as Burgess with Tixier as the two drivers meet on their opposite trajectories, and unfortunately you can't keep Seb behind.
Yeah, I think that was just kind of the inevitable outcome there. Seb Tixier, remember, your pole sitter, the fastest driver out here today. The only reason why he's in the middle of the field, as like Joe was saying, kind of had that little oopsie there. That was Glenn Becker. Yeah, no, Glenn Becker kind of going for a half spin, and I believe some of the other cars kind of getting around him, including Jonathan Jourdain.
Self-spin there coming up through, I think that was Le Carrias, and no, actually I think that was Le Servier. But regardless, he unfortunately found himself sideways. He gets it going and avoids a wreck. What about Vreco? Still stuck between Olsen and Verbruggen. These three have been up against it for quite some time. Look at the variety in lines through these first three corners as Iztok tries to get his nose underneath, but to no avail.
Now, a few laps ago, it was really Verbruggen pressuring Vreco, so now Iztok is taking his opportunity to try to go up there and pass the number 7. A little bit of a change in the look of this battle, but John Olsen doing a great job up there, up 2 positions from where he started. There's the slight door open from Vreco, and tell you what, Verbruggen is still right on the gearbox. So even though that Iztok is maybe getting held up just a touch from John, he also has to keep one eye on that mirror. If he leaves the door open too much, he's going to have company.
Ooh, cuts back underneath. He gets a good run, but he's on the wrong side. Coming up to the left-hander here as it rises over, and he'll have to get back in line once again. This has been ongoing for a good chunk of the race, and they still have at least 10 laps to go.
Down through these S's, see if anybody overcharges turn 14 at the bottom of the hill. Nice and tidy, really, from all 3 of them. They put the power down quite nicely. I still think that's the coolest section, and I love compression areas like that, especially as a driver, because you look at this corner and you say, there's no way that I can go that fast through there, but just the natural elevation, the extra grip that it gives you, it's pretty cool to drive those.
Oh, do we have a pass for the lead? Valenteus manages to get side by side, trying to get as much room on the entry into the left-hander. Togo Hisada almost squeezes him off to the side of the track. A cut back for Valenteus does not produce results. Hisada once again keeps him at bay, but just barely.
And I think that there is a little bit of posturing going there into turn number 6 as this battle between Verbruggen and Vreco continues to rage on. But I was going to say, I think that maybe even Togo led off a little early going into turn number 6 because he didn't want Valenteus to pull that over-under. So a little bit curious. They're definitely kind of playing the chess game, pulling out all of the moves.
Yeah, Togo's a smart driver, that is for sure. He pulls some clever moves. Valenteus, we often see him running away, so I haven't really gotten a good feel for how he is in these fights as much. Today is definitely giving a taste of it, and so far I'd say he's aggressive but fair, and considering the state that of the track that they're in, he's certainly got his hands full on this job.
Something I have been noticing about that lead battle, I'll mention it here in a second as we watch Laust Olsen continue to work his way up in the field. So He is up in 18th. It went by the number 22 of Alejandro Sanchez there right behind him. But turn number 1, it's probably the fastest corner on the racetrack, and just the driving style of our leader, Togo Hosada, it is so cool to watch him literally kind of rally car flick it into that super fast left-hander.
Got a bit of a replay. Let's see if we're going to be seeing this pass attempt. No, this is Pongrazi down in 20th. Oh, no, and just sends it in a little bit. No, who was that sending it on him too deep? Didn't quite make out who that was. It was the 32 was Roberto.
I believe it was the 22 of Sanchez, but I could have misread that number there. But either way, hopefully there's no damage on either.
Yeah, a bit of a shame to see them out like that. Pole Fair, I don't know if this is damage or a penalty. Looks like a penalty. Pole Fair with too many incident points gets his drive-through penalty. So now we get to see who has been abusing those limits a bit too much. And let's not forget that car contact is worth 4 incident points as opposed to a single one for an off-track. So those like Pole who have come together with somebody are going to be up against it even more.
Check back in on Verbruggen, still trying to find a way around that number 6 car, and these 3 have just been doing everything the same. I mean, Olsen still continues to lead Vreco over Verbruggen, and just none of them can figure out a way around each other.
This is the sort of situation you loathe to be in at tracks like this, where you're stuck in a line, you can't find any sort of advantage over your rival, or maybe you've just gotten too used to everybody's rhythm and you need to break out, do something different out here. And so we're going to step away from that in the meantime. Another driver still trying to break out is Valenteus versus Hosada. Nieva waiting to see if he could pick up anything if they start fighting once again. This is all up in the air with 8 laps to go. Now 7 as they approach the line.
And they've got 2 cars right in front of them that are actually in a battle. That's Micheletti and Tobias Harnvey just up the straightaway from them. So this will be really, really interesting. Let's see how quickly Togo Hosada is able to make these decisions as we approach turn number 3. I think the opportunity is going to come right there, at least for the first car. He also lets Valenteus by. Now comes the second.
Micheletti going to be the next car as they hit DuPont down at the bottom of the hill, compresses down there, and then back on the throttle. Morrow is going to pull off to the side, and I think that'll work out a little better for Togo than it will Valenteus.
Yeah, definitely that number 1 car got held up a little bit, but nothing that Andreus definitely can't overcome, so he's just going to have to focus, kind of hit his marks through this 8-9 and into the quarter pipe section. And I've been noticing Valenteus, especially there into turn number 9, he flirts with that limit. I think that's where that slowdown came from, because he is full 4 wheels off the track, almost in the sand at turn-in.
Yeah, and I'm pretty certain the sand is out of bounds once he gets to there. Meanwhile, David Rossi versus Sanchez. Sanchez behind, Rossi in front in the maroon colored car. Just behind them, Bob Woodhouse also in this mix. 4 position, a little wide there for Rossi. Sanchez can't do anything with it, though.
The 17, if he holds up the 4 anymore, there's going to be a 4th car joining the party. But there goes Sanchez up to the inside. He is going to complete that pass in turn number 11. So he'll lead those 3 cars then down the hill through this S section and into turn number 14. I was going to make the comment, though, that Seb Tixier in that number 8, he has already closed it from 1.8 to 1.0 on the back of Woodhouse here. Here's the number 8 car. So yeah, with 6 laps to go, he has made his way almost into the top 10.
A real adventure through the French countryside for Seb today, unfortunately. And he just set the fastest lap of the race on top of things.
And he did it last lap too, Joe. He is on a roll.
Wow. So I guess now that he's getting a few laps in clearer air, he's got the opportunity to show just how quick he is. Remember, he started this thing from pole, so it makes sense that he could take those purple laps, but unfortunately, it's not really going to net him much other than maybe a few more positions. Now that he's reached Bob Woodhouse, he's got a veritable buffet of cars in front.
I tell you what, our leaders just went through a traffic jam. It looked like I-5, I-95, wherever you are, Holy smokes, there was a lot of cars being navigated there as Tixier is now going to make his opportunity on Bob Woodhouse and try to get a couple of these because Rossi's right there as well. Some valuable points as one of the cars off right there in front of him.
As they plunge back down the hill once again. What is Seb going to do? Is he going to set him up coming out of the final corner as he does enter quite wide, gets it down to the apex. Both in front, though, get the throttle down. Don't think he's got an opportunity quite this time, but Woodhouse is closing in on Rossi. He's going to think about it into the first corner, but nothing doing, and around the outside comes Seb Tixier.
Watch for the over-under out of the number 4 because Woodhouse is going to slide up the inside of Rossi. And actually, Rossi just kind of left the door open right there. Can Tixier capitalize? Yes, he goes by as well. So now it's just going to be between Tixier and Woodhouse.
I did not think that Woodhouse was going to get that position. But yeah, Rossi kind of rolled over on that one. Now Seb Tixier has one less car to try and overtake, but nothing doing through the left-hand hairpin. Back down they go once again towards the half-pipe section, as we've started to call it now. And look at how much rubber is laid down as they compress down in there.
And you saw the difference in the two lines. Look at that rolling apex speed from the number 8. Kind of wags the tail a little bit on exit, but there are some multiple different lines depending on how aggressive the driver is with those track limits.
Taves takes the fastest lap back up at the front, but still not in the lead over Hisada. And we're down to 4 laps to go for them, so time is running out. There you can see them now switching back through DuPont. More lap traffic in the form of Max Linden and David Tomaski in front of them.
Up and over turn number 6. Put the foot down. The number... is dropped back by about a second and a half, so it is just between the number 3 and the number 1 for that checkered flag.
Tuck inside of Tomaski, who's going to try his best to stay out of the way, leaves them spaced down at the apex, and they are through. So there's another chunk of lapped cars. Bjorn Ackerman going to be the next one, along with Jim Matson. So there is still yet more to come. And I can report that Tixier did just get by Woodhouse, so that's now up to 9th for the Singapore driver.
Big time wiggle from Togo Hisada. Watch him here into turn number 1. Valenteus shows the nose, and Togo adjusts his line just a little bit to go more defensive. And Valenteus once again trying to slide the inside car, or the inside line there in 2 and 3, but just not able to do it. I feel like the last corner is where it's going to come from, and Valenteus almost actually into the back of Togo.
You have to wonder, including this race, there's 5 point-scoring races remaining here for Valenteus. He's got a gap of 50 points over Togo Hisada. First to second is only 5 points different. Is Adrius maybe content to not push it at a track like this where it might be risky to try and make that eventual move for the win?
I think trying to tell a racing car driver not to pass another car, it's just kind of like banging your head against a brick wall. It's never really going to work out. As Valenteus, that's not really ideal. He was way wide on the entry there, but he's able to still put the nose on the apex. So watch this final turn. Watch how hard he ducks it to the right to try to get the run. About half a car width wider on entry than Togo Hisada. So I feel like if he's able to close it up maybe a half a car width more, that might provide him this opportunity.
He's there once again, but he can't get the side-by-side up into turn 1. That's what's making the difference here as it closes in, tightens up, coming through the triple apexer, and then eventually you get back on the throttle. But by the time he catches him, it's a short burst down into DuPont where they once again switch back, and it's narrow through here as there's a tunnel under the track, so you can't go off through there or else you're going to hit the tire barrier.
And they're approaching these lap cars at the worst possible time here, so it is going to get busy. There goes Togo around 1. Valenteus, here comes a move to the right side. Valenteus looking for the lead. Togo Hisada going to have to carry the momentum around turn 8 and defends.
That is Matson in front of them. Didn't have much place to go trying to run his own race here. and is not doing any favors to Togo Hisada, who still remains behind as they head through the last few corners. Can he manage to get through? They're coming down through the S's now. Will he pull off to the side? Now he finally lets them through. Not the most convenient of places, but at least they're past.
Yeah, but this is the opportunity. Valenteus Togo Hisada is off of his line in turn number 14, Joe, but he actually puts the power down. That was excruciatingly close for an opportunity for that number 1.
Oh, and now he's getting a little desperate. Look at him send it deep into the first corner this time, and that sent him a little wide. Last lap here. Valenteus needs something special. He's still within attacking distance here. And look at him go wide. Is he going to get the cutback maybe?
And Nieva just inserted himself into the mix, but watch the number 1 car. He's going to try to go to the left side here in turn number 6, but that straightaway just isn't long enough. Now we've got rush hour. Time to turn things on its head.
He's got him on the ropes. He's making defensive lines into pretty much every corner here. As Hisada makes contact. Off the course he goes on the last lap. Nieva's got a chance to try and pick this up as well, as Valenteus and Nieva are now battling. Valenteus has to go defensive as Jorge Nieva searches side to side, try and find something. He's also going to slide, and he has to catch the car. Valenteus, was that the pass he needed to run away with this one to the finish line? He has not led a lap at all this race. He has been fighting for this win. And though he has taken most of them this season, this is going to mean the most to him, I imagine, as Valenteus takes the victory in France.
From third to first with the fight on his hands all race long. I think that was a righteous win from that number 1 car. Togo Hisada finished in second place, so there must have been a problem with Jorge Nieva in the final couple corners as Vreco, Verbruggen, and Olsen all crossed the line as well.
You know what? I think it was another slowdown penalty because Nieva again pulled off to the side and had to slow down. Gutting way to finish this one as Glenn Becker is going to race side by side here on the last lap. This might be a tight track, but it sure produces some exciting racing.
Yeah, and this is downhill into that really tight turn number 14. We're going to see if the 23 car can stick it around the outside, see what kind of power down. There's the over-under move. I think the pink car on the inside is going to beat to the line.
Nicely done there by Jourdain. Becker finishing 15th. Incredible stuff. 20 cars out of our 37 starters going to manage to complete all of our laps. Sanchez coming home just behind Grissinger for 19th position. And then Mongrazi, the last of them, which is going to take us to a quick break. We'll come back with the unofficial results as well as driver interviews, so stick around. Welcome back to Ledenon. I think we're a bit speechless after that race because it had a bit of everything and it was tight all the way to the finish line with Valenteus taking the victory after he was sat in second place pretty much the entire run over Togo Hisada, who unfortunately had a connection with another car on the first lap and then a connection with another car on the second lap. And that last one cost him the win potentially as Nieva finished in third behind them after we think he got a slowdown penalty. It was hard to find where he may have picked that up, and he could have easily got second place if it wasn't for that. Olsen was fourth as Vreco was P5. Then it was Verbruggen in 6th, and Ben Zoko up from 10th to 7th. A nice climb for him. Xavier Sanchez finished P8. Seb Tixier, who started on the pole and got punted off in the first corner, was only able to climb back to 9th. Woodhouse gets himself a top 10.
And then I just want to say shout out to Tixier because even though up to 9th, I mean, he literally passed the entire field. So great job to him. 11th place, David Rossi back here. Darren Burgess also with a good run, up 12 positions, finishing in 12th. Marco Salgado back here in 13th. Jonathan Jordan in 14th. Glenn Becker in 15th. Laust Olsen was officially your biggest mover, starting way in the back. Gained 20 spots to finish 16th there. Matthew Maudsley in 17th, Michael Grissinger 18th, Alejandro Sanchez in 19th, and Roberto Pengrazi rounds out your top 20.
Jim Matson was the first one to finish a lap down there in 21st. Mats Lind in 22nd, and Jan Steffen in 23rd. After that, Nelson finished P24 with Tim Porter in 25th. Mauro Micheletti was 26th today. Paul Ferrer had perhaps one of the most unique wrecks we've ever seen in 27th, as David French was 28th. And then Harnvey, first one 2 laps down, 29th. Robert Plumley finishes 30th today. Amazingly, not that many DNFs from there on down, just a few other cars, a few laps down. Tomaski Porter, Cam Porter, Evan Navarro, and Ackerman before you get into the cars who did not wrap this one up. I believe we've got second place finisher Togo Hisada ready to talk to us. And as we said, bookended by car contact this race. Togo, a wild one out there, and you had a great defense going for most of it. But let's start at the beginning. Have you had a chance to go back and look at the touch that you had with Seb Tixier, and what's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, in the the first lap, I think I went too wide. I went too wide. This track is very narrow, and I have a feeling of crashing into him. So I think I thought it was my fault, but check the replay. When that says net code hit or the pretty large, and I'm still touching the inside curve still. So I think I left the space as possible to him. And he did it too, but the net code, me and the service, both the Asian driver. He's on Singapore, I'm in Japan, so there should be a very big net code hit. So it's very shame about that.
Yeah, it was a bit sad to see, but then that set up what was one of the most incredible battles. Valenteus breathing down your neck. It's a bit of a shame that it didn't get to go all the way to the finish line, but you gave us quite a show.
Yep. Still, that collision with the lap car, that's just racing incident, I think, because this track is very narrow and most of the corners, the complicated corners, so the very complicated the racing line, so the very easy to do that. And Andreas, he never made mistakes. always in my mirror. So he's a robot, and just I'm full of sweat now. So that I have to take a bath again. Yeah, that's a crazy race. Yeah.
Well, I have to say I'm impressed with how relaxed you are about the incident with the lapped car. I think a lesser driver would have been super incensed.
Yeah. I just shout, shout after that. But catching the breath now. Yeah, it's all okay. Yeah, racing incident.
Well, again, it's still a second place. Impressive considering what happened, and hopefully we'll see you next time out when we visit Olton Park.
Thank you.
That
Thank
was Togo Hisada finishing P2 today, who is diplomatic about what happened out there. But I think Joey has caught up with third place finisher Jorge Nieva, and maybe we can figure out the mystery of that slowdown.
Well, Jorge Nieva, congratulations on that third place, but what was that slowdown there at the very end of the race?
Well, I knew Togo and Neutrius were faster than me. They much faster, and I thought it was very sad Togo would lose his position because that lapped car. So I let him by because that's what he deserved.
You know, that is probably the most gentlemanly thing I have heard in a while. So tip of the cap to you, sir. But what did you think about this Ledenon track? You were pretty much in third place all race long. Did you feel like you ever had an opportunity to maybe take some notes and pick up some speed to fight those guys?
No, of course not. They were much faster. At the beginning, I could barely follow Togo, so I let Adrius pass me. Follow them, and sort of it worked, but in the end it was the same. Adrius would have passed me anyway, so it was fun trying to follow them, but I knew my only chance was for them to have an accident, and they are very, very cautious and very gentlemen also, so they didn't have anything.
Well, looking at the future in the schedule here, next week is Olton Park, another one of these tracks that is quite narrow. Are we potentially going to see you stand back on top there?
We were where I can, but I'll be there. So let's wait, because there are some guys there that race after race are getting faster, like Kevin and Richard Watson, and I think they'll be in front of me, but I'll try to keep my podium aspirances.
I think if anybody is out there listening and watching right now, if you want a community to go and race in, this is the type of driver, if you come and race here in the 49s, that you get to race against. Jorge Nieva, I just want to say thank you so much for participating and being one of the cleanest racers and one of the nicest guys out there.
Thank you guys.
That was Jorge Nieva rounding out today's podium, Joe.
Yeah, a bit of a shock there that's why he gave that one up. We've got one more to talk to, Kevin Verbruggen, who finished sixth and was another one stuck in a battle all race long. Kevin, you, Iztok, and John just couldn't seem to get away from one another.
No, that was an amazing battle. Lots of fun there. I feel like, both me and Iztok had the pace over John a bit. But on this track, it's very hard to get by, of course. You have to basically wait for a mistake. I think I had a couple of opportunities, and Iztok too. Got side by side at a couple of points, but eventually it wasn't to be. Still P6, that's my best result, I think, so far. So very happy with that.
Well, and even Jorge was praising you just moments ago, saying you're one of the drivers that's picking up pace. What do you think is possible with you continuing to see better and better results?
I don't know. That's of course something you'll see over time. Where if I can hit a ceiling somewhere, or if I just keep getting faster and faster, I do hope that maybe sometime soon I will get that top 5. I'm very close this time, of course. So not that I didn't get that, but maybe later in the season.
Now, this track, coming in, we thought, wow, this is a powerful car. This is tight, twisty. It's very short. I don't think it's going to suit it very well. For us, from our perspective, it put on an incredible show. From a driver's perspective, how do you feel about it, though?
As a driver, it was an amazing track to drive, especially for hot lapping and practicing. It's just the undulations. There are some bank corners. The track limits are very lenient in some places. It's very, very nice to drive. Of course, for racing, it's very, very hard. It's a bit tight for this car, of course, but lots of fun.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it because we definitely did up here. And again, congratulations on a best ever finish. Can't wait to see it at Oulton Park.
Thank you.
Kevin Verbruggen finishing P6 here today. And that's going to wrap us up with a big thank you to the Grand Prix Legends community for bringing us back for another season of coverage, as well as to the team today, Daniel, Joey, and Dougie. Make sure to check out our social media, our website, and a merchandise store. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment. As we said, next race, we're heading back to the UK. That'll be Saturday, May 11th at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. Also, be sure to check out our other broadcast because today we have the IMSA Vintage Series going to Interlagos. That'll be at 1 p.m. Eastern. Until next time, though, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.
Yeah.